Thank you, councillors. If I could get you, please, to take your seats. Thank you to the gallery. If I can get you just to quieten down. You're a bit rowdy tonight. We haven't even started and you become rowdy. Thank you. Welcome, everybody. It's Tuesday evening, the 23rd of April 2024, and welcome to the City of Canning's Ordinary Council meeting. I declare the meeting open. It's just hit 6 p.m. And we start, of course, by acknowledging the Whadjuk people, the traditional custodians of the land. We also pay our respect to their elders, both past and present. Can I please ask everyone here this evening to make sure your mobile phones are turned off? Thank you, or at least on silent, completely on silent for the duration of the meeting. This meeting is being live streamed via the City's YouTube channel. Council meetings are public meetings and any information you provide shall be recorded and may be publicly accessible. The council chambers are not a parliament and parliamentary privilege does not apply. Elected members and staff risk being held personally liable if their comments are defamatory or breach any duty of confidentiality. Statements made during council meetings are solely those of the person making them. Nothing expressed at a council meeting can be attributed to the city unless it's adopted by a resolution of council. The confirmed minutes of a council meeting are the official record of that council meeting. Verbatim meeting minutes are not required. Nevertheless, the city does publish a full recording of tonight's meeting. And the recording of council meetings must not be copied, republished or reproduced without the city's express permission. Let's get on with tonight's agenda. Attendance, we have no apologies this evening. I'm really pleased to say that the full council of the City of Canning is present. Approved leave of absence. We do have an approved leave of absence, which has been approved, for Councillor Tuchek from the 28th of May till the 25th of June 2024. Disclosures of interest at item 3. Chief Executive Officer Michael Littleton, do we have any disclosures this evening?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. We have received no declarations of interest affecting or of a financial interest. I've received one interest from Councillor Amanda Spencer-Teo, a declaration of impartiality in relation to the notice of motion 00524. The item details are proposed changes to 3 intersections along Leach Highway. The nature of her interest is Councillor Amanda Spencer-Teo lives in the area and uses these intersections multiple times per day. That is the extent of the interest.
Thank you, CEO. Announcement by the presiding member without discussion, item 4. I just wanted to thank my Deputy Mayor, Amanda Spencer-Teo, for keeping an eye on things and doing such an admirable job in my absence. I've been to Europe for the last month. I got back late on Thursday, so I wanted to publicly thank her very much for the work that she had done while I was away, chairing meetings and holding citizenship ceremonies and a whole raft of things in my stead, which gave me the opportunity to have a short break, my first since 2019, and enjoy a bit of a break with my wife in Europe for a few weeks. And talking about wives, Warren, it's your wife's birthday this evening, and here you are giving up your evening with your wife to spend the night with our community at this meeting, so congratulations to you. And just to talk about the commitment to council made by elected members, it's my wedding anniversary tonight and I'm choosing to spend it with you all here tonight while my wife is probably tuned in at home. Do you think she'll be tuned in at home? She's probably not tuned in at home, but she'll be at home on our wedding anniversary by herself. So sorry, Trude, happy anniversary. Reports of delegates without discussion at item 5. Does any elected member wish to present a delegate report? Thank you. We shall move on. Question time for the public at item 6. The time set aside for public question time is 15 minutes, which may be extended if deemed necessary. For recording purposes, I'll ask those asking questions to make their way to the podium when I call your name and proceed to ask your questions. In accordance with policy ADO2, members of the public who have registered their interest to ask a question with the City's administration shall be called upon in the order in which registrations were received. Written questions will always precede verbal questions. So I open public question time right now. It's just on 5 minutes past 6 p.m. I do have a number of questions that have been registered for tonight's meeting. Mr. Green, did you want to step forward and ask your question? We'll just get staff to put that microphone on for you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Go right ahead. Just introduce yourself to the council and ask your question, Mr. Green.
Shell. Mr Mayor, councillors, officers, I've come to mainly thank this council for the wonderful job it's doing in the community. Now, if you'll pardon me, I have an ancient Apex t-shirt on, the Apex Club of Canning, but I had to leave it more than half my lifetime ago because I turned 40. That was the rule. But I proceeded to Rotary, and now I've proceeded to the Multicultural Lions Club of Western Australia, but I still have links to the others. Now, I wish to thank the council for the wonderful job it does when it answers the telephone. The response you get is the most polite, courteous and efficient that you could possibly imagine. I can't remember this lady's name, but her first name is Petronella, and she gave an exemplary performance.
Well, I thank you for your commitment to the community. Thank you for your volunteer service over many years, Mr Green, and I will certainly pass on that feedback to our staff members, so thank you for that. But I just need to ask you for your question, please, if you don't mind.
Right. First of all, you should know too that I'm a member of the Chungwa and have been for about the last 30
Tremendous,
years.
thank you.
Look, I am the sole director of Estel Holdings Proprietary Limited, the owner of 2A, 4 and 4A Deverell Way in Bentley. Now, that's right on the corner of Dumond and Deverell. And it's been rezoned to R80 apartments. Now, my question is, this took me rather by surprise. My question is, when a property is rezoned like that, should the owner be notified, consulted perhaps?
I'll get an answer for you, Mr Green. We have something prepared. Thank you very much for coming this evening. I'll ask Director Graham Bride, the Director of Planning and Development. Mr Bride, can you just respond to the query for Mr Green? Thank you. Thanks, Mr Green.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. There hasn't been any recent scheme amendments in the area. The city's current scheme came into operation in early 2020 and advertised in 2018, and it did upcode residential areas within 200 metres of a number of key transport corridors, such as Manning Road. The increased density along transport corridors was identified in the local housing strategy in 2014 and the local planning strategy in 2017, which along with the local planning scheme was subject to extensive consultation. The local housing strategy in particular involved workshops at various community centres and halls throughout the district, with one focused on Bentley and St James, with the majority of attendees supportive of the density changes at that time. The local planning scheme, which incorporated the recommendations of the local housing strategy, was also subject to a 3-month advertising period, which involved notices in local newspapers, notification in the city's e-newsletters, publication on the city's website, regular social media posts, the placement of hard copies at the admin centre and libraries, and direct notification to resident and ratepayer associations and a range of government agencies.
So we went out of our
Mr.
way
Mayor,
to talk about that. That was 2018, Mr Green.
I beg your pardon?
It was 2018 we started discussing that, and there was a significant amount of advertising around that.
Yes, I beg your pardon. May I make the simple comment?
Yes, you can make a simple comment.
The city of Canning, with all of its virtues, knows always where I live when it wants money. But for some reason, when there are notices about consultations, they don't know where I live. And I find this unacceptable and galling, and I know nothing about what the gentleman has just explained, nothing at all.
Look,
No,
if you like, Mr. Green, sorry, I have to interrupt you. We've got a full schedule on tonight. We've got a lot of other people wanting to ask questions. You've asked your question. We've got a formal answer to it that'll be published in the minutes. If you would like any further information about that or questions in relation to why you may not have been consulted, I'm very happy to ask through Director Bride for a senior member of staff to contact you to discuss that personally with you if that would assist you. But I can say hand on heart that we, I would think, lead the sector in relation to public consultation. I think, sometimes correspondence, doesn't quite make it. You may have overlooked it. I'm certainly not blaming you for it, but I can tell you we widely advertised what was going on in that area. It was addressed here at this council in a number of public meetings, and it was widely advertised and also advertised, I think, by local newspapers, ran stories on it. So I'm sorry that you missed it. But I would have thought for most people in that area, the upcoding in that area would have been gratefully accepted because it's significantly changed the values of those properties in there, I would believe. So, but certainly I'm very happy. Director Bride, I believe that we've got Mr. Green's details. Mr. Green, I'll get the staff to contact you if you like.
There is one further quick question, please.
Make it very quick, Mr. Green. Thank you. What's your question?
The public consultation to do with Bentley 360 was excellent, extraordinary. Bentley 360 went nowhere because it was so perfect it couldn't be afforded and it was cancelled. That was a decade ago. Nothing has been done since except the removal of the hoops from the netball goals on the oval, which was a mean thing to do to the children of the area who used them after school holidays, etc., 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 and have been without them for about 10 years.
Mr. Green, that's not a council plot of land. The land is actually owned by the state government. That's a state government department project. It's not our project. We have no responsibility, unfortunately, for that. In fact, just recently, the relevant minister has exercised his prerogative under the Act and will be making all decisions in relation to Bentley 360. And most of the planning in relation to that project won't even come before this council for its approval. So we've been completely sidestepped by the relevant minister. So I accept that you might have some criticism in relation to that project, but we have sat idly by as a council watching nothing happen for 10 years, wishing something would happen. No community in this city deserves more recognition and better amenity than Bentley. They've got a lot of work needs to be done in there socially and also asset-wise. We hope something happens, and at the moment nothing much has. But I thank you for coming down this evening, Mr. Green.
Another 15 seconds, if you will. There is a great fear within me and amongst other people in the area, bearing in mind I have a great and extensive network of
Mr. Green, I'm going to have to ask you to ask a question or please take your seat. We've got a whole night of agenda to get through.
Is it in your mind, as it is in our fear, that Bentley 360 is going to be replaced because of cost with Bunnings Garden Shed 2024?
You're saying that a Bunnings store will be built on there? Is that what you're...
I'm saying that it's in our mind that because of the state government, with the cooperation of this council,
It's not with the cooperation of this council has been sidelined somewhat by the decision-making process.
In the past,
Mr. Green, I would advise you to take this up with the local member who has responsibility for that, with Minister John Carey, the Housing Minister, who has some responsibility, major responsibility over decision-making. You're talking to the wrong people. We have no approval authority anymore over what is happening at Bentley 360.
Thank you for your courtesy and patience, councillors, officers. Thank you for the great job you do in the city of
Thank you,
Canning.
Mr. Green. Appreciate that very much. Thank you. Thanks for coming down. Miss Amanda Jacobs, I think, are you here? Miss Jacobs? I have a question here. I'll read it out in relation to agenda item 7.2 CC 006 of 24. If Council were not to support the proposed lease to Sparkle's Early Learning, how does it plan to support families in Wilson with before and after school care and vacation care? We depend on the service to maintain employment and ensure our children can attend a school. Ms Lorraine Driscoll, the Director for Corporate and Commercial, can you give us a response to that, please, Director?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor. The City understands that local families have relied upon the outside school hours care, vacation care services offered by Mulberry Tree and has made every effort to identify a new provider to ensure a minimal disruption to services. Should Council not support the proposed lease to Sparkle's Early Learning, officers will be required to publish another expression of interest to determine if there are any other suitable candidates to provide outside school hours care services from this facility. If a suitable candidate can be identified, Council will then need to endorse the proposed lease. This process could take up to 6 months.
Thank you. And Ms Jacobs had a second question. It was in relation to agenda item 7.2, CC 006 of 24 again. The question is, it is very encouraging to see the proposed operator, Sparkle's Early Learning, wishes to invest in the asset and improve the building and amenity in the yard. Is the City of Canning prepared to make any further improvements to the building and associated facilities? The building and yard are in dire need of refurbishment and upgrades. Director?
Thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor. The City has allocated approximately $30,000 to paint the internal brickwork and perform other minor building improvements within that fund allocation. The City will concentrate on the building improvements, noting the proposed tenant wishes to make improvements to the exterior and grounds.
Thank you. We have questions also from Mr Steve Walker, and they have been provided to us in writing. Look, Mr Walker, you may be listening at home tonight. I must say, I and the directors and the CEO have read your question one. I can't make any sense of it, and I'm really sorry. I tried very hard. I would reword it for you if I could, but I just can't understand what it is that you're trying to say. And you've also made a number of claims in there that I find a little bit disparaging, well, certainly disparaging of our staff. And I'd ask you to be far less critical in the way you answer these questions. So those questions will be actually, and the answers to them will be published in the minutes of this meeting, and that'll be published at some stage later in the week, but I don't propose to read them in their current form. I have questions this evening from Ms Colma Keating. Ms Keating, hi Colma, how are you? Welcome. If you'd just like to introduce yourself to the council and ask your question.
Thank you. And just a bit of feedback, it's very difficult to hear for lots of people behind.
Is there? Okay, we'll see what we can get done.
Colma Keating from Riverton Drive in Shelley. How is our city supporting and encouraging residents, ratepayers and community to complete the state government's Perth and Peel Urban Greening Strategy survey, which closes, it's open until the 7th of June, including to highlight the devastating impacts of the Polyphagous shothole borer and clearing of mature trees on private property?
Director Warren Bowe.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I will take the first element of Ms Keating's questions on notice, but in relation to the city's response to Polyphagous shothole borer, our council will consider a notice of motion this evening, and the officers being privy to that notice of motion have supported it, and we'll await the outcome of the vote on that matter.
Thank you. Look, I'll just answer that as well, if you don't mind. I'll just say a few words on that. The Deputy Mayor's raised notice of motion will be considered by this council a little bit later on. I sit on the Western Australian Local Government State Council, and I actually raised it with the State Council on the 6th of March. This is, in my view, the biggest environmental disaster to hit this state in its history, and no one seems to be willing or ready to talk about it at the moment. And in fact, the data and what is happening across the Perth metropolitan area is just mind-boggling. So, I think as much as the City of Canning, could do more, everybody could do more. It's a state government responsibility, and also the Environment Minister, the Federal Environmental Minister also has a responsibility here to protect this state. I am really fearful for what is going on ahead, but I will be bringing that matter forward, so we'll discuss that in open chamber and everybody can listen to that debate. Mr. Charlie Blackwell, I believe, has a question. Oh, sorry. Hello, Charlie. How are you? You've got a question here. I'll get you to introduce yourself to the meeting and then please ask your question.
My name's Charlie Blackwell. This question, I'm happy for you to not answer it now because I want like actual data. How many kilometres of new, not repaired or redone footpath were put in per year in the last 5 years?
Can I ask why would you need the data? What was the reasoning for that?
I'm not sure. I'm asking on behalf of my dad, who also lives in Cannington.
Director, is that something we're able to provide easily?
We'll happily take that one on notice, Mr Mayor, and do the research and provide that information.
Certainly, and the data that'll be published hopefully published in time for the minutes of this meeting, or perhaps not.
Hopefully, Mr Mayor, yes, we'll try to.
Hopefully, we'll get the data in time. It'll be published in the minutes of the meeting. Yep, no problem at all.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. Thanks for coming along this evening. Any other questions from the public before we close public question time? Thanks very much, everyone. We'll close public question time now. It's just on 20 minutes past 6 p.m, and I thank you for those questions this evening. We shall move on to item 7 on tonight's agenda, which is the confirmation of minutes of the ordinary council meeting held back on the 19th of March in 2024. The recommendation is also on screen. It also appears in tonight's agenda. Can I have a mover, please, for that item? Thank you, Councillor Kunza. Deputy Mayor was the seconder. We'll put that matter to the vote. Thank you.
The motion to confirm the minutes from the March meeting has been carried unanimously with all 11 in favour.
Thank you. And item 8, receiving of petitions, presentations and deputations. There are no petitions this evening and no presentations. At item 8.3, we do have a deputation this evening from Mr Stephen Johnston. Hi Steve, how are you? In relation to the Deputy Mayor's notice of motion 006 of 24, education and management plan for the shot hole borers. Mr Johnston, well known to this council, but please just introduce yourself for the sake of the recording and go ahead. You have up to 10 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. Stephen Johnston, 13 Delphi Court, Rossmoyne. As the Mayor said, I'm speaking tonight in support of Councillor Bain and Councillor Spencer Teo's motion. Councillors, last Friday I took a stroll around one of Perth's oldest and best known parks, Hyde Park, just north of CBD. It was a perfect autumn day under the shade of the huge century-old trees like these. Office workers were having their lunch and parents were playing with their young children, people were strolling around the lake. But as Charles Dickens wrote, it was the best of times, but it was the worst of times. Because I dreaded the thought that in the coming weeks or months, this beautiful heritage-listed park will be irrevocably damaged when up to 20% of the park's 900 trees will be removed. And these are a few examples. These trees are designated on the website, these Moreton Bay figs, for destruction and wood chipping. Next photo, please. These London plane trees by the lake, these 3 trees, will also go and be wood chipped. Next photo, please. And all those trees, every one of them, on that island of the lake and the other island of the lake will also be removed, just leaving bare mounds. And the cause of this, next photo please, is this. It's 2 millimetres long, about the size of a sesame seed, but if the evidence from its overseas infestations is any indication, the Polyphagous shot hole borer has the potential to either kill or require preemptive removal of thousands of trees in Perth and indeed wherever else it goes to. The toll on mature trees is already high. According to Walga, 1,600 affected trees had been removed across Perth by January, and the toll is growing. An article in the Journal of Economic Entomology found that the borer, which is native to Southeast Asia, was first detected in South Africa in 2012. But in just 10 years, it had spread to 8 of the country's 9 provinces, and the academic authors' modelling predicted that it could result in the death or removal of 25% of South Africa's urban trees by 2032. The borers kill trees by cultivating a fungus which prevents the transport of water and nutrients. The fungus also prevents insecticides and fungicides from reaching the borers, and because they spend most of their lives inside trees, surface application chemicals have no effect on them. So all you can do at the moment is to prevent their spread is at best remove the affected branches and failing that, remove and wood chip the tree. August 2021 was when this insect was first detected in Australia in Fremantle. It was initially thought they might only attack introduced trees, and about 10 species were sighted, and a quarantine area was quickly established around the southwestern suburbs. 2.5 years later to now, that quarantine area extends over 25 local government areas, and the target species has grown more than ninefold. The WA Department of Primary Industries and Regional Development, or DPIRD, has recorded 90 species of shrubs and trees where the borers have both established their fungus and successfully reproduced. 11 are Western Australian natives, including some of those most commonly found along the Canning River foreshore: the flooded gum, the swamp sheoak, the swamp paperbark, plus 2 of our best known and loved WA trees, the Maori and the flowering gum, as well as 2 Banksias. Councillors, unless trials of insecticides that are now being undertaken by DPIRD score a world first by being effective against the borer, or somehow the impact of the borer on our trees is not as great as has been experienced overseas, we can but hope, we are facing, as the Mayor has indicated tonight, a real long-term nightmarish prospect that comes on top of the already formidable development, vandalism and climatic forces ranged against trees in this city. As you know, in Canning in 2019, when the Urban Forest Strategy was produced or came out, we had the 3rd lowest level of tree canopy in Perth, and Perth now has the lowest level of tree canopy of any Australian city. And this is being reduced almost every week as some of our best trees on private land are being trashed for residential redevelopment. And there is nothing the council can do about that. It is entirely a state government planning issue. Then, of course, we have just experienced a taste of the future. The city's driest 6-month period since rainfall records were first kept 150 years ago, with those runs of searingly hot temperatures that have taken a significant toll, particularly on smaller trees planted by the city, but also on some mature trees. Despite the great commitment and dedicated work of our park staff to protect trees in public open spaces and plant thousands more, the emergence of the shothole borer on top of these destructive forces and the continuing incidents of vandalism will pose a huge challenge for the city to achieve even its modest increased tree canopy goal of 9.3% by 2039. One of the most infuriating aspects of this whole emerging nightmare, as the Mayor has already alluded to, is that it seems to hardly have registered on the state government's priority list. Okay, I recognise that's a pretty full list, but I would have thought that this was not just a matter for the Agriculture Minister, Jackie Jarvis, and her department with its responsibilities for plant quarantine, but also the Department of Biodiversity, Conservation and Attractions because of the borer's potential impact on our precious conservation reserves, and for the Department of Planning, Lands and Heritage, which is, after all, currently preparing the state government's urban greening strategy just in time for next year's state election. Unfortunately, I fear this will be yet another case where local government is going to have to do a lot of the heavy lifting to fill the gaps left by the state government. We can all justifiably rue that, but of course it won't achieve anything. What we can do constructively is what Councillors Spencer, Teo and Bain have recommended: show some leadership and firstly try and make Canning residents aware of the borer's impact, the signs of infestation and what they can do to help combat its spread. And please, can we get some more current comprehensive information up on the city's website? All I could find was a 2-year-old notice that Canning was in the quarantine area and a 2-month-old bulletin about the removal of affected trees. Have a look at the Town of Vincent's website. The information on the borer is prominent, illustrated and comprehensive. The second part of the proposal before you addresses in a small but significant way the pressing need to get more qualified people on the ground to help stop the spread of this dreadful insect. Really, all the city administrations, as the Mayor also alluded to, for the other 24 quarantined LGAs should also be doing this. We need every resource we can get. Councillors, I urge you therefore to give your unanimous support to this motion tonight. Not only are these initiatives urgently needed for all the reasons I've outlined, but they recognise that there is really not much point in committing large amounts of money to planting more trees for the urban forest strategy if we are not also prepared to allocate money to try and protect the mature trees we've already got against possibly the biggest single threat they have ever faced. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr Johnson. Thank you for coming along this evening. Thank you. That matter will be bringing forward in just a few minutes, so thank you for your patience. Let me see, I'll just get to the correct page. I've lost my spot. Applications for leave at item 9, recommendation before you, councillors, is that Council grant Councillor Steve Parkinson a leave of absence for the period 25 April to 23 of May 2024 inclusive. I'm happy to move that from the chair. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Bain, thank you. I don't think there's any need for anyone to speak. Councillor Parkinson has asked her for a short period of leave. I support that. Anyone else wish to speak before we put it to the vote? Thank you. Let's put that item to the vote.
The motion for a leave of absence has been carried unanimously with all 11 in favour.
Thank you. Item 10 is questions by members of which due notice has been given. There are none. Items brought forward for consideration and for the convenience of those in the public gallery at item 11. That item that will be brought forward will be Notice of Motion 006 of 24, the title of the report being Education and Management Plan for the Shothole Borer PSHB. That will be brought forward. I'll bring it forward in a minute. I'm going to finish off reports of committees. Just leave it. Thank you. Reports of committee meetings at item 12. There are none, I believe. Reports of Mr Michael Littleton, the Officer of the Chief Executive Office. There are none this evening. You're right. We will bring forward that item. That'll be the notice of motion. Brought forward notice of motion 006 of 24. It's a notice of motion brought by the Deputy Mayor and also by Councillor Mark Bain. The title of the report being Education and Management Plan for the Shothole Borer. And that item is now on screen. It also appears in tonight's agenda. Councillor, Deputy Mayor Amanda Spencer-Teo, would you like to start us off, please? You'll be the mover and Councillor Bain will be the seconder, I believe.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just firstly, I'd like to thank Councillor Bain for his support on this notice of motion, and of course Stephen Johnson and all the friends from CREPA as well. And also to you, Mr Mayor, for requesting or advising about your advocacy with SECA and WALGA on this. And I'd just like to draw the attention to councillors that we have added a request for you to write a letter to WALGA on this, and also to the relevant state and federal ministers. But I'll get to that towards the end. As Stephen Johnson said, the Polyphagous shothole borer is native to Southeast Asia, and it's spread to Israel, South Africa, the US, and has been recorded to have caused substantial economic damage. After speaking with industry professionals from Parks and Leisure WA, which is the peak body that engages with local government and park managers, and the Australian Institute of Landscape Architects, my concerns have been growing over the increasing number of mature trees being removed in Canning due to the shothole borer infestations. To date, over 40 mature trees have been removed by Deep Herd in Canning, and there's no funding or plans in place to replace the valuable tree canopy that we've already lost. These very same industry bodies have been expressing concerns to government at both state and federal levels over the lack of resources and the time that it is taking to remove the infested trees, and of course a lack of awareness within the community as the potentially devastating effects of the shot-hole borer could have on WA's urban forest and native ecosystems. This invasive pest, suspected of entering WA through a contaminated furniture container arriving at the Fremantle port in 2021, has the potential to cause extensive damage to over 900 tree species, including but not limited to figs, banksias and eucalyptus trees. A quarantine area is in place over 25 local governments in WA. It's getting louder. Including right here in Canning. But Mr Mayor and councillors, did you even know this? How many people do you think in our local community know that we are in a quarantine area, let alone what the boundaries are, and that they can't transport clippings, soil or mulch outside of this area? DPIRD's funding of $41.29 million will cease on the 6th of August 2024. Local governments and industry professionals are asking what happens next. And where are the education programs that this funding was supposed to roll out? Unfortunately, there doesn't seem to be any answers. As a result, local governments are being left to fend for themselves, and many are resorting to implementing and funding their own education programs to raise awareness of both the shot-hole borer and these quarantine areas. Councillors, we need to protect Canning's most vulnerable and valuable mature trees. We can't wait any longer. This motion is calling for us to take matters into our own hands and to develop our own education program. I recognise that DPIRD are doing all they can, but they are just so under-resourced, they simply cannot keep up. There's an unacceptable delay in the detection and removal of infested trees, which is enabling this pest to take flight and spread. This motion is asking for us to draw down on our urban forest reserve to protect our urban forest and to engage a suitably qualified arborist to assist in the early detection of the shot-hole borer in Canning. Our canopy is already one of the lowest in WA at 7.6%. We have a large area of Banksia woodlands in Canning Vale, which I also might add is where most of the clippings of these removed trees are being sent to right next door. We have the Canning River Regional Park, and we have hundreds of significant trees throughout our locality that need to be protected. Although I don't believe we should be funding this, I don't see that we have any other choice. $100,000 now could save hundreds of thousands of dollars more in the future if we can at least stop or slow down the spread of this pest. I hope for your support this evening, councillors and Mr Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bain.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to thank the Deputy Mayor for her collaboration on this motion. The invasion of the shot-hole borer is a very serious issue and one of potentially significant environmental, economic and social consequence, as demonstrated and outlined by Mr Johnson, with the clearing of 26 mature trees at Hyde Park and 20 Moreton Bay fig trees at Kings Park. As we know, the borer is active and spreading in Canning. Concerningly, the invasion is only in its initial stages. Given that the City of Canning already has one of the sparsest canopy coverages of any metropolitan council, if the borer gains a foothold in our parks and natural areas, the results could be catastrophic. While DPIRD is the agency responsible for detection and removal, their resources are limited and spread across 35 affected councils. They simply don't have the capacity to manage Canning's tree population. We can and need to step into this void to prevent a potential disaster. Early intervention is key to minimising the impact of the borer. By contracting a qualified arborist, we can fill the gap by identifying infestations in a timely manner to prevent further spread. Recently, the Wilson Residents and Ratepayers Association raised with me the amount of information currently available to residents. They want to know more about the invasion, what is happening, and how they can help. Combating the spread of the beetle requires a collaborative effort. As Associate Professor Theo Evans from the School of Biological Sciences at UWA and CSIRO scientist Bruce Webber made clear, if we can bring everyone together to rapidly tackle this insect invasion, the whole nation will benefit. A communication and education plan will help to achieve broader community engagement. We need to be doing everything we can to stop the spread of this pest and protect our existing canopy. The Deputy Mayor and I have put forward a couple of proactive measures for Council's consideration tonight that will hopefully assist in combating this destructive pest. I hope they receive your support. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak on the item? Look, I'll just say a few words. Look, I want to thank the Deputy Mayor and Councillor Bain for a very strong notice of motion. Look, in my view, and I raised it before Mr Johnson's deputation, the environmental threat from the shot hole borer is, in my view, far worse than that presented to Northern Australia by the march of the cane toads. We are going to lose tens of thousands of mature trees, and many of those trees, think about just the city of Canning, corner of Bungaree Road and Fern Road, that beautiful big Moreton Bay fig that sits there, has sat there for probably more than 100 years. We're going to lose those trees. We're going to lose countless trees right across the city. This is not just a metropolitan area concern, it's a concern for everybody in the state. Think about every country town, from Margaret River all through the southwest up north. Most of those towns have beautiful heritage and ancient trees as you enter those towns, and many of those are going to be lost and will never be replaced. They can't be replaced because we can't get rid of the shot hole borers. In my view, this needs to be a bipartisan approach by all governments, by all parties. We need to recognise that this is an environmental disaster on our doorstep. I'm hearing, matters about, funding for water taxis on the Swan River, and I think those things are wonderful ideas, but I think we need to turn our minds right now to something on our doorstep. And the City of Canning has a unique position as the custodian for the Canning River Regional Park. We have a unique position in this council where we really need to be thinking outside the square. I echo the concern of the Deputy Mayor in relation to funding this. This is not a matter that should be funded by local governments. There are many local governments in Western Australia all with the same problem, but biosecurity is not a matter that is within our remit. It's not our responsibility that this pest was allowed to enter Western Australia. But we are now recognising that somebody has to step forward, and in that vacuum we are. But I think that local residents should be outraged by local governments needing to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars of taxpayer and ratepayer money to fund something that should be the responsibility of the state and federal environmental minister, and that's just my personal view. So I'm urging the state and federal governments and all parties to step forward and start talking about funding, a fighting fund to allow allow local government to get on the front foot with this. Mark Bain made a very relevant point. We do have the resources here and the people here to fight this on our own, but having our hands tied by DPIRD and not allowing us to step forward and remediate the threat when we know that we can is only enhancing the threat and expediting it across the state. I've spoken to the state vice president of the State Council of Western Australia, Walga, Councillor Kelly, and I know in Claremont they're having the same issue. They are identifying trees, and DPIRD can't get out there in a reasonable amount of time, which is allowing the pest to take flight and infect more trees. The response needs to be firmer, faster, more effective, and local government is the sector that can provide that, not DPIRD. So this needs to be an all-in fight because I don't think anybody here, or very few of us, realise and recognise the threat that is here. Just picture this city of Canning without many of the large trees here. I had a conversation with our CEO earlier this week saying, I'm starting to lose real heart. I don't understand why this council would continue to fund millions of dollars every year into the planting of new trees and the funding of our urban forest strategy when we are losing mature and heritage trees at a rate that outstrips the new saplings that we're putting in. It just seems to be really bad economics. So we need to get something right first before we keep investing in replanting trees that are bound to be eaten by these shot hole borers over the next 20 or 30 years. So I'm looking for answers, and I'm looking for guidance from people that are far better resourced than us, and that's federal and state government. So please, I appeal to all levels of government, get together in a bipartisan approach, help local government, let's all work together and get this sorted. But I strongly support the recommendation before you. I thank the Deputy Mayor and Councillor Bain for their careful consideration of a matter that all councils need to be on the front foot right now today. Thank you, councillors. I'll be supporting the motion. Anyone else wishes to speak to it before we put it to the vote? Councillor Hearn, yes.
Sorry, I'm speaking against this particular motion. Whilst I'm supportive of the sentiment of this notice of motion, I'm no longer of the view that the shot hole borer can be contained, and I'm of the view that cutting down trees and removing limbs is not the correct strategy. The battlefront is 3 years behind us. The borer's nature makes it almost impossible to contain, and by the time trees are removed, the borer has voluntarily moved on. Removing trees and tree limbs have not contained this outbreak. It is not an effective management strategy, and it is not working. Trees and tree limb removals are not being used to manage shot hole borer internationally. In the time that the shot hole borer takes to destroy a tree, an effective insecticide may become available, and our tree canopy will have been thinned in futility. I believe City of Canning requires a strategy for managing shot hole borer, and I'm supportive of one being developed, but I do not believe the notice of motion articulates the strategy we require at this time.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak to the matter before I hand back to the Deputy Mayor? Thank you. Councillor Singh?
Just a question, Mr. Mayor.
Of course.
On the DPIRD website, it says there is a chemical they are developing to stop or to treat shot hole borer. I'm not sure if anyone in CEO's team can answer that, but are we getting any support to try those chemicals? It seems like they offer it to local governments to trial that chemical and test its effectiveness. Any update on that chemical being?
Just before Director Bowe starts, we were briefed in the State Council of the West Australian Local Government Association on the 6th of March by DPIRD, and informed at that time there is no treatment for the fungi. It can't be treated, but I stand to be corrected. Director?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Look, we'll take that question on notice and give some a definitive response on that one.
We'll have to come back to you on that one. Thank you, Councillor. Anyone else wish to speak before I thank you? Councillor Deputy Mayor Amanda Spencer-Teo, would you like to finalise debate? We had one councillor speaking against the matter.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just as I said, with moving the motion, I don't believe that doing nothing is an option. With any kind of biosecurity issue, the successful approach has always been hit it hard, hit it fast, and stop the spread. And I think that's what at least we need to offer support in that way. To address Councillor Singh's question, the $41.29 million of funding was to also go to the research and development of treatments, but that halted around about 6 months ago, I believe, because DPIRD simply just don't have the resources, and they put all the resources they did have into inspections and removals. So the last update from DPIRD was that there is no R&D currently at the moment, but I'm happy also for Director Bowe to obviously investigate that as well. So I'll just leave it there. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, councillors. In the absence of any other discussion and the Deputy Mayor closing debate, thank you. We'll put the matter to the vote.
Motion Nom 006-24 has been carried with 10 in favour, with Councillor Hearn voting against the motion.
Thank you, councillors. Thank you, governance. We move on to item 13.2 from the Directorate of Miss Lorraine Driscoll, the Director of Corporate and Commercial. The first item is CC 006 of 24, the report title being Selection of Preferred Provider and Proposed Lease at 4 Hares Street, Wilson, formerly the Mulberry Tree Childcare. Thank you everyone for coming along this evening. Good night, safe journey home. The officer's recommendation appears on screen and obviously also is in your agenda this evening. Councillors, can I have a mover please? Councillor Bain is the mover for that. Thank you, Councillor Bain. Can I have a seconder? The Deputy Mayor Amanda Spencer-Teo. Councillor Bain.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I support the officer's recommendation and the city entering into a lease arrangement with Sparkles Early Learning. It's great to see the site in Wilson continue to be used for childcare and education purposes, as has been the case for a number of decades now. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I support the officer's recommendation. I know how important OSH care is for local families. We had a similar issue in Riverton not too long ago, although it's a shame that there will be a month that there is no provision, but at least the community have plenty of notice and can make alternative arrangements. So I'm supportive of this, and I hope my fellow councillors will be also. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone wish to speak against the item? Anyone? Councillor Hearn. I think your microphone's not on. Is it not working? There you go.
Now it's working. Okay. I'm of the view that this is not a service that falls within the domain of local government. It is not a local government remit to manage commercial contracts in this area either. I note the commercial market rent for this facility is lower than surrounding private accommodation rental rates. I also note the entire first year's rental income will be consumed by painting works. For some time, I see there is no financial benefit to COC and administrative costs to be borne. It is an area receiving subsidies from the federal government, and I'm of the view that free markets will ensure these services are available where they are needed. It is my view City of Canning should cede management of this site to the state government.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak for or against the item? Councillor Bain, did you wish to rebut? No, nothing further. We'll put the item to the vote. Thank you.
Motion CC 00624 has been carried with 10 in favour, with Councillor Hearn voting against the motion.
Thank you. We move to CC 007 of 24, the title of the report being Monthly Financial Report, February 2024. The officer's recommendation appears on screen and also appears obviously in this evening's agenda. Can I have a mover, please, for the item? Thank you. Councillor Page, a seconder. I'll second that from the chair. Councillor Page, anything you'd like to say in relation to the monthly financial report?
I support the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. I too support the officer's recommendation. Implore council to also support the recommendation. Anyone else wish to speak against the recommendation? Thank you. We'll put the item to the vote. Just one more. That's it. Got it.
Motion CC 00724 has been carried unanimously with all 11 in favour.
Thank you. The next item is CC 008 of 24, Tender 05 of Bleak 2022 for banking services. The officer's recommendation appears on screen. Can I have a mover, please, from the floor? A mover for that item? Councillor Page, thank you. A seconder? I'm happy to second it from the chair. Thank you. Councillor Page?
I support the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. I too support the officer's recommendation. Does anyone wish to speak against the officer's recommendation? Thank you. We'll put the item to the vote.
Motion CC 00824 has been carried unanimously with all 11 in favour.
Thank you, Governors. The next item is item 13.3 from the Directorate of Mr Graham Bride, the Director of Planning and Development. The first report is PD 003 of 24, the title of the report being Canning City Centre Parking Demand Forecasting and Management Report. The two-part recommendation appears on screen and also in tonight's agenda. Can I have a mover, please, from the floor? I'm happy to move that myself from the chair. A seconder? Thank you, Councillor Parkinson. I commend the officer's recommendation in relation to the report and thank staff for coordinating the response to an item I brought up some time ago. I very much appreciate the staff time involved and Council's consideration of the matter. I support the recommendation as put. Councillor Parkinson, anything further?
I support the recommendation. Nothing further to add.
Thank you. Councillors, anyone wish to speak against the item or ask a question? Thank you. We'll put the item to the vote.
Motion PD 003-24 has been carried unanimously with all 11 in favour.
Thank you. The next directorate is the Directorate of Infrastructure and Environment. Mr Warren Bowe is the Director. There are no reports from that directorate this evening, so we shall move to 13.5. Dr Sarah McQuaid is the relevant Director. She is the Director of Customer and Community, the first report being CO 005 of 24, Canning Open Arts Studio. The officer's recommendation is on screen. Can I have a mover from the floor, please, in relation to that? That would be Deputy Mayor Amanda Spencer-Teo, and a seconder, please. Councillor Page. Thank you, Councillor Page. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Firstly, I'd like to thank Director McQuaid and her team for putting this body of work together. We have some very excited and enthusiastic artists in Canning who have been waiting for something like this for many years. I recognise that this is a pilot program with the anticipation that somebody would eventually take it over, and I'm very confident that we have very many willing and able artists willing to do that and jump on board with this program. So councillors, I would really appreciate your support on this this item, and so too would our arts community in Canning. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Page, what do you think of the Canning Open Arts Studios recommendation?
I'm very interested to see the outcome of this pilot. I'm sure there are very many residents very eager to see what we'll come up with.
Fantastic. Thank you. Anyone wish to speak against that item? Councillor Shen, second.
Not speaking against the item, I just have a question. Do we anticipate that the Canning Open Arts Studio pilot program would replace the current Canning Arts Awards? Or is it two separate?
Director.
Through you, Mr Mayor, thank you for the question. No, it won't replace. The Open Arts Studio is a trail where artists in the community will open up their studios, whereas the Art Awards is about obviously celebrating and putting on an exhibition and bringing everyone together. And we see the Canning Art Awards as an opportunity to promote and encourage people to then participate in the Open Trails Studios program.
Thank you.
We hope it'll enhance our offering. Thank you. Councillors, let's put that item to the vote.
Motion CO 005-24 has been carried unanimously with all 11 in favour.
Thank you. The final motion this evening on tonight's agenda is in relation to Notice of Motion 005 of 24. It's a motion that has been put by the Deputy Mayor, Amanda Spencer-Teo. The report title is Proposed Change to 3 Intersections along Leach Highway in Rossmoyne, Shelley and also Riverton. The notice of motion is on screen. Well, most of it's on screen and also appears in full in tonight's agenda. Deputy Mayor, you'll be the mover for the item. Do I have a seconder, please?
I'm also moving it with Councillor Kunzer.
Sorry, thank you. Yep. Councillor Kunzer is the seconder and moving the item alongside the Deputy Mayor. Thank you to you both. Deputy Mayor, can I ask you to start off the item? Thank you.
Firstly, Mr Mayor, if I may just read out, make my declaration. I just want to make sure that all bases are covered, and I'd like to state that I live on Central Road in Rossmoyne and I use 5th Avenue intersection multiple times a day. I also have a child attending Rossmoyne Senior High School who walks to school and uses the Webb Street Leach Highway overpass to get to school. And finally, I am the Liberal pre-selected candidate for the seat of Riverton. However, even before I joined the party and ran for pre-selection, I had my reservations and concerns about this project, which I raised with staff and the local member, and that was based on feedback that I had received from the community as well. So, but all that aside, Councillor Kunzer and I present this notice of motion to you this evening in response to the deputations given at the March Ordinary Council meeting by Rossmoyne resident Helen and Danielle and Riverton residents Andre and Natalie. It's also in response to the e and paper petitions that were raised, that was raised by Helen, attracting well over 1,000 signatures opposing the changes by Dr. Krishnan and Main Roads WA, plus the numerous emails and phone calls that we have received since the flyer was delivered by Main Roads. All too often, major changes to intersection and roads are proposed and implemented by those who don't use them daily, with little to no information on the impacts and effects on the local road network. I can only assume that this is because the government department responsible for the internal road network is often not the same one proposing or doing the works. This very same community have suffered long waits in the past to address internal pedestrian and vehicle safety issues. For example, the Webb Street intersection works were first advocated for on behalf of the community in 2016 and didn't commence until 5 years later. Another example is a roundabout installation at Medillion and Corbell Streets, an intersection that has taken lives and has taken almost 4 years to get to a point where we were ready to start the works, but that's pending Water Corp's works now. Data obtained by Main Roads shows that there has been 16 crashes reported at the middle of the intersection at 5th and Leach and 14 at Corinthian Road East over the past 5 years, with only 3 and 5 respectively requiring medical attention, not hospitalisation. There was a peak of crashes during the Webb Street works in 21-22, which would indicate more traffic was diverted to 5th due to these works. But this has reduced significantly since the works have been completed, with only one crash, and that was a rear-end crash, being reported for the whole year of 2023. I recall speaking many times with our former employee Ben Moore about this project, and he quite rightly suggested that the member for Riverton wait until we saw the crash data post-Webb Street works, as it was anticipated that this would reduce the number of accidents at 5th, and well, he was right. The data demonstrates exactly this. But irrespective, an average of 3 crashes a year, none of which have required hospital treatment or worse have been fatal. When you compare that to other intersections along Leach, High, Varland, Willeri, with double, triple the amounts of crashes and that are far more serious, involving hospitalisations and even fatalities, you really have to question if this is the best way of spending $5 million of taxpayers' money. I know we're not here to question the project or the level of investment, but the letter I'm asking Council to write is, well, on behalf of the Mayor, the Mayor to write on behalf of the Council, is to raise concerns. So just quickly, I want to give you some comparative figures to think about. The Varland and High Road intersection, which has traffic lights and controls over right-hand turns, reported 46 crashes, 10 of which required medical or hospital treatment, and we all know about the fatalities of this notorious intersection. So should we prevent right-hand turns along Varland even when there's controls in place? Willeri and Hossack, a similar laid-out intersection to 5th, reported 12 crashes, with half of them requiring medical and hospital treatment. Should we advocate to put a set of lights here or just prevent the turning in and out? Now, I know we don't have the power to stop the project, but we can't sit back idle and do nothing. This motion simply asks for 2 things: for the Mayor to write a letter to the Minister expressing Council's concerns over the lack of community consultation and the outdated data used to justify this project, and for us as a council, if necessary and based on accurate and up-to-date data, to get in front of the consequences of this project and those that it will have on the internal road network, to allow us to adequately budget and plan for any future works. Our community should not have to sit back and wait for years to address any of the local road safety issues that will result from this project, especially where our students and our seniors are at risk. The wait and see approach is just simply not acceptable. As our community's grassroots representatives, we shouldn't sit back and watch this unfold in silence either. This project will have negative impacts on local residents, aged care facilities, local and small community businesses. Over 1,000 residents have spoken. Countless have expressed their concern in writing to us and over the telephone. I ask you, councillors, to please support this motion. It's not asking for too much. It's a letter and some data collection and some forward planning. Councillors, it's the least that we can do. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Ben Kunza.
Thank you, Mayor Hall. Look, yeah, I speak in favour of this notice of motion, which has become a bit of a hot topic in the local community. Look, what we need to know, and the Deputy Mayor touched on it, is what are the consequences of the proposed modifications, some of which I don't believe have been adequately covered to date, especially with respect to the impact on the local road network. Now, this notice of motion aims to address that. It's quite telling 1,000 residents have signed a petition because they are concerned with the potential consequences. And I just want to take a moment to commend those who led the petition, including Helen Lund, who's here this evening. This is not the city's project, as we know, and we don't need to provide the funding. However, the consequences of the project are important, especially if it causes further issues down the track. Now, whilst I appreciate that there's been 16 incidences at the 5th Avenue and Leach Highway intersection over the last 5 years, and I don't want to diminish the impact that these collisions would have had on those involved, I believe it needs to be considered in the context that 55,000 cars and trucks travel each day along Leach Highway at this point in both directions. This has been an interesting process in the way in which it's been conducted, given that we would usually consider road modifications based on demonstrated need, with factors including crash speed and congestion data. It would be priority-based, with funding allocated on the transport projects assessed as highest priority. Now, almost every intersection will have collisions related to it, especially along these major arterial roads, such as Leach Highway and South Street. On South Street, just outside of Canning, at the intersection of Wheatley Road and Bull Creek, it's almost an identical intersection to the 5th Avenue one, with a history of crashes linked to it, many of which have required medical attention. And as far as I know, no proposals to alter or block have been made for that intersection. Now, the real difference between many of these intersections, like the one in Bull Creek, is Rossmoyne and Shelley are effectively an island. You only have 5 entry and exit points to these 2 suburbs unless you're leaving by canoe. And in a place like Bull Creek, you can enter via the north, the east, the south. You have a better choice that you don't have that luxury in Rossmoyne and Shelley, so the modifications have to be considered with respect to their consequences. Now, I see that since the design was published, Dr. Krishnan has informed me and the public that the project is to be placed on hold due to the feedback being provided by the public, and I and the public appreciate that. But whilst I believe that public consultation and feedback are very important, and we've aimed to address that through this motion, I do hope that the data and the methodology of an infrastructure project should be able to stand up to public scrutiny. Now, given there's already been talk of changes to the design, including retaining the ability to turn into 5th Avenue from Leach Highway westbound, which is supposed to be closed on the current design, it appears it hasn't been able to withstand that scrutiny. Now, personally, I'm unsure why main roads would prevent turning into 5th Avenue from Leach Highway, especially if you've already blocked cars exiting from 5th, which removes one of those crash factors. Now, you only have to look at the intersection of Braybriars Road and Leach Highway in Wilson, which was recently changed. That was a problematic intersection, but by closing turning into Braybriars Road, coming to council tonight from Shelley Bridge, I have to turn down Bungaree Road, which is already a very busy road, and that's pushed me down Bungaree Road, as it has for lots of other people, even though there wasn't really an issue to turning into Braybriars. So I'm not sure why they did it, and that's the same with respect to 5th. And so back to the point of this notice of motion, we need to know the potential consequences, and to do that, we need up-to-date data, and we need to understand the impact on the local road network if any changes are implemented. Currently, those who find the 5th Avenue intersection dangerous have the option to use Webb Street, whilst those who have no concern can use 5th Avenue. Closing 5th Avenue, as is the current design, pushes absolutely everyone to Webb Street or Beatrice Avenue, which will then have impacts on roads like Central Road, Corinthian Road West, Wilbur Street and others. Likewise, the changes to the intersection of Corinthian Road East and Leach Highway will change the traffic flow in Riverton. And perhaps this traffic flow change will be acceptable and the road network can accommodate it. But we don't know that because we don't have the data. And I believe that the impact and the potential consequences need to be properly considered before implementing any changes. The positives of this project need to outweigh the negatives. And lastly, it would be remiss of anyone watching this conversation to forget that 7 years ago, it's been 7 years since the Row 8 project was cancelled by the state government and no alternative has been provided, and traffic along Leach Highway is only increasing. So I would ask all those who are running state and federal elections that the next election commitment needs to address and increase the capacity of Shelley Bridge to remove the bottleneck and the related queue of cars and trucks along Leach Highway, which really does make these intersections hard to navigate. And that is an election commitment that I'd get behind.
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, Councillor Hardeep Singh.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to move an amendment to Part 2B of the motion.
Hang on, let's have a look at that.
Before we
2B.
go into that, can I just clarify? It hasn't been actually addressed that the motion is different to what was in the agenda.
Deputy Mayor. And also I just wanted to, I'll come back to you in a moment, Councillor Singh. And the other thing too, just in relation to that, Councillor, there has been a slight change made to the date in 4. In my running sheet is the 30th of September. I know that was the intent of you to move 30th of September as the date for that information to come back. But I'm not so certain that was actually in the agenda. Can I just get you to confirm that that date that's currently on the screen is the correct date, the 30th of September?
Yes, Mr Mayor. Basically, I'm accepting all of the officer's recommendation amendments, you could say, including allowing more time for that data to be collected and reported to council, also considering that there are school holidays in that period as well. So, yes.
CEO, just in relation to the query.
Yeah, look, thank you.
Someone got your mics on? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, just to confirm that the recommendation that Council is considering, as I understand it, is item 1 as is represented in the current agenda, item 2 with the additional elements that the officers have recommended to 2B, so that will be a 2B parts 1, 2, 3 and 4 and 5. Part 3 will be as represented in the recommendation, and 4 will be as is represented in the recommendation, other than the date changing from 31 July to the 30th of September. So that includes all of the officers' recommendations plus the additional date.
Councillor Singh, the inclusion of B1 through to 5, was that the recommendation of the city's officers, not the Deputy Mayor and Councillor Kunza, though they agree with them?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That actually the agenda, as Councillor Kunz said, it doesn't represent the amended motion, so that addresses the question. Now, I do have one question to ask to Director Bull. Page 92, point 13. In light of this notice of motion, the city has advised MRWA that comments will be provided after the matter is considered by the council on 23rd of April. Can I ask that those comments, how soon those comments can be made available to councillors to see, are those comments ready, or will those be prepared after the meeting?
Director Bowe.
We're happy to provide those comments to the elected members, Mr Mayor.
No problem at all, Councillor Singh.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to read those comments before making a decision, so I'm prepared to move a procedural motion if required. If those comments are small, can be read in 10 minutes. Happy to take a break and read the comments, but I would like to see the comments before making a decision on this.
Just as far as clarification, what comments are they that you seek? The comments in relation to which part?
Point 13. Those are the comments which city officers will provide to Main Roads WA. Are those comments included in the agenda briefing?
Director?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. As part of any normal design process undertaken by the state government through Main Roads to deliver road projects. They invite the city to review the different plans at different stages of development. So our officers have undertaken a review of the design, but I don't believe we have finalised our comments as yet, and we're certainly we're prepared to consider any resolution tonight, which may also influence the comments, and we can provide the consolidated comments to all elected members before we send them through.
Thank you. Councillor Singh?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Now, this becomes more like a chicken and egg. I would like to see the original comments from the officers without influencing those comments by this council's decision. That's what I would like to see to make my decision, that what do officers think as of now. So the only way I can think of is to move a procedural motion to adjourn this motion until next OCM. And I'm happy to move that motion, unless there is another recommendation.
Certainly your prerogative to do that. CEO, you had a comment you wanted to make?
I think the comments that the city's design team will make will be based on the their technical assessment of the designs provided by Main Roads and their knowledge of the road network. I don't think that they will be necessarily affected by the city's by council's notice of motion tonight. I think that they will just support council's council's position. So I think that they can be provided independently of each other. The director has said that he's happy to provide the feedback. I think the intent of council is to identify the concerns that they have in the broader context of the upgrades to the 3 intersections. The city's officers will actually look at the technical merits of the design that's provided.
Councillor?
Mr. Mayor, I'm interested to see those comments to make the decision. So I would like to move the procedural motion that this motion to be adjourned until the next OCM.
For the next OCM, that would be May?
Yes. That 1 month should be enough for any councillor to consider those comments and ask questions.
Okay, so Councillor Hardeep Singh has put a procedural motion to adjourn this item until the next ordinary council meeting, which will be May 2024. For that to go to the vote, he would need somebody to support that point of view. So I would ask if there is a seconder in the room. If there's not, we'll go back to debate. Councillor Hearn has seconded it. Councillors, we have a motion to defer. Councillor Singh is the only person that can speak to the motion, and then we will put the matter to the vote.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My simple ask is it's a technical matter. There are some benefits and there are some drawbacks into all these amendments, into the whole project, and it's not as simple. Crash data, all those 16 crashes which have happened, if we ask those families who were affected by those crashes, they will highly likely support this project and the amendments. But as Councillor Kun said, there are 100,000 and more traffic moving into the Leach Highway. So does the benefits outweigh the drawbacks of this project? So we really need to see the technical assessment. Our officers are the best people to advise us because they are the experts on that road data. They have all the data. I believe it will be beneficial for us to at least see that data and then make the informed decision. We are here to make decisions, but we must consider each and every piece of information available to us. We are just delaying it by another month. We are not stopping any project. The motion is all about writing to the minister, and that can still happen after next month once we consider all those comments which officer has to present. Thank you.
Thank you, councillors. The matter in front of you is to defer the matter through to May 2024. No, Deputy Mayor, you had a question?
Yes, considering the local member did actually state in the media that Main Roads have not agreed to pause the project, would delaying it by a month, would that then, would city officers then ask to have that report back to us in October? And would that be enough time for us to discuss with Main Roads, considering that it would be almost less than a month that the works would be due to commence?
Well, I guess at the end of the day, if the adjournment is actually approved by council, that means that the substantive motion is actually put off. So the date and everything will be need to be considered at the ordinary council meeting in May. It's not something that we can any longer turn our mind to right now because we're not debating the substantive motion at the moment. It would need to come back in May, and we would then look at the date. CEO, that's my view on that.
Yeah, sorry, I was asking Director Bowe if he would then request us to change the date from September to October to get that information back to us.
Would we need to put, Director Bowe, would we need to put the request back to October, do you believe, or September still?
I don't think so, Mr Mayor. Our suggested modification to the date ensured that a full year had elapsed from the original traffic counts to ensure a like-for-like comparison, a year-on-year comparison.
Thank you. Thanks, Director. Councillors, you're not voting on the substantive motion. You're only voting to either defer it or not defer it. That's it. So a vote in the affirmative is to defer the matter to next month, and obviously the reverse applies. Councillors will put the matter to the vote. This is just to defer or not to defer. Oops, I pressed the wrong button for a start.
The procedural motion has been lost, with Councillor Singh voting for the motion and all other councillors voting against the procedural motion.
Thank you. So we just move back to the substantive motion. We've had the Deputy Mayor speak to it. Councillor Kunza has also spoken to the motion. Does anyone wish to speak against the motion? Councillor Hearn, ask a question.
Sorry, through you, Mr Mayor, to you, Director Bowe. I'm just wondering if it's possible to put a ballpark cost on item 3 and 4 and possibly 2B, including cost of contractors and staff time.
So 2B, that work will be detailed through Main Roads WA, I believe, but Director, just in relation to any costs in relation...
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I might ask our Service Leader of Transport Engineering, Ryan Gibson, to offer a ballpark figure.
Ryan, did you hear the question put by Councillor Hearn?
Through you, Mr Mayor, can you please repeat the question so I can find the relevant components, please?
I'll just paraphrase if you like. Councillor Hearn was just asking if it was possible to provide some sort of ballpark figure in relation to any work required by the city in relation to items recommendation 2, 3 or 4. I think that was about right, Councillor Hearn?
Oh, sorry.
You're on? No? Off again? On again? Yep.
Through you, Mr Mayor, the traffic counts are per count is roughly around $200 per counter. Some of the locations will require 2 counters, so there's a reasonable number there. It's probably in the vicinity of around $3,000 to $5,000, depending on the location. So we'd need to go and do the exact numbers, but that's probably around the cost.
So that's in relation to the traffic counters, and the other item 2, that work substantially be done by Main Road WA, is that right? You've lost your mic again. So I think I've answered the question. I think item 2B requests that the following investigations are made into the effects of the internal local road network, including Corinthian, but that is to be done, my belief, by the MRWA. Is that right, Director? Director Bowe. So those costs are being, we're requesting that cost be borne by MRWA, not the City of Canning. They're doing the investigation. We're writing to them just to request that they undertake those investigations. So the only costs from the city's offices relate to 3, which be somewhere between $3,000 and $5,000 for the traffic count requested in item 3. Thank you. Anyone wish to speak either for or against the item before we put it to the vote? Thank you, councillors. We'll put this item to the vote. Thank you.
Motion NOM 00524 has been carried with 10 in favour, with Councillor Singh voting against the motion.
Thank you, councillors. Thank you, governance. At item 15 this evening, urgent business, there is none to consider this evening. Item 16, confidential matters, there are also none. Item 17, closure. I want to thank those in the public gallery who are still here. Thank you for your attendance this evening. We very much appreciate it. Thank you to council and also to governance staff and to directors. I now officially declare the ordinary council meeting of this evening closed. Thank everybody for their attendance, and the time now is 7:24 p.m. Thank you.